Brought to you by Haverstock Funeral Home and Cremation Services.
On air at 96.7 FM. Online at HometownNewsNow.com. This is your number one source of news and information in LaPorte County. 96.7 The Eagle. Welcome to Sound Off on 96.7 The Eagle, LaPorte County's original social media. Sound Off is a public interest forum that encourages your voice to be heard on the topics and issues impacting our local communities. For the next 30 minutes, we invite you to be part of the conversation by calling 219-362-0522. And you can now text your questions to the Liquor Vault on-air line or by email to soundoff@967theeagle.com. This is a topic-based program, and we ask that you keep your comments brief, concise, and related to the topic being discussed. The views expressed on Sound Off are those of the hosts or callers and do not represent the opinion of 96.7 The Eagle, Spoon River Media LLC, or the sponsors. The Liquor Vault on-air line is now open for your calls or texts at 219-362-0522. This is Sound Off on 96.7 The Eagle.
Hello, friends. Today is Friday, December 10th, and you're listening to Sound Off on 96.7 The Eagle. My name's Nate Laux, and it's an honor to be your host today. Today, my guest grew up in LaPorte, Indiana. He's an attorney, writer, and speaker. And a few years ago, he was diagnosed with a rare and incurable cancer. Recently, he published a book called Firm Grip about learning how to thrive when life doesn't go as planned. And I thought, let's talk about this. It's not often that we have authors here in our own community, but also authors with such a unique topic. I know some of our listeners are battling their own health issues, and some people might be, especially with the holidays going on, thinking about, calling it quits or just not having enough optimism to get through to a tomorrow. So today's episode is for you. And if you've got a battle through cancer, if you've got a question, we've got the Liquor Vault on air line at 219-362-0522. You can call me or text me. You can email me at soundoff@967theeagle.com. And if you'd like to talk to Bill Nelson, you're welcome to as well. Hey, Bill, how are you, buddy?
I am doing great. It's a pleasure to be here today.
Yeah, I'm glad to have you here. So let's talk a little bit about your background. Maybe some people might know already because they're familiar with you, but you grew up around LaPorte, in LaPorte. You played for legendary baseball coach Ken Schreiber. Is that correct?
I did, yes, I did.
How would you rate your baseball playing skills?
On my best days, I was an average player. So I was one of those guys that Coach Schreiber put on the team because he always wanted to have citizens on the team. He wanted his good ball players. He wanted good citizens.
So you fell more in the good citizens line.
I was one of Schreiber's good citizens.
But eventually, you became a lawyer and a public defender here, a part-time public defender here in LaPorte County. And I've known you for a couple of years through some church background, but also through being a lawyer. But things changed for you a couple of years ago, and life got turned upside down. I want to talk a little bit about what happened, but instead of me telling your story about your incurable cancer, why don't you tell our listeners kind of what happened and how you got that news? Yeah,
Nate, it was fall of 2015. I was 50 years of age, spending a lot of time exercising, eating healthy, taking care of myself, and some weird symptoms started with some weird hearing issues. And then I had a couple dizzy spells, and I assumed I had a sinus infection. Well, after some doctor visits, I found out in early January of 2016 that I had this rare, incurable form of cancer called medullary thyroid cancer. Thyroid cancer itself is not rare, but what is the type that I had, and it was I'm not afraid to admit, it was a terrifying time. It's January of 2016. When you hear the word cancer, that gets your attention. You hear the word rare, you perk up, and you hear the word incurable, and things change. And at that point, I was pretty much assuming that I wouldn't live till the end of the year.
So you get that news. Where are you going for medical treatment at this time?
Well, everything was diagnosed locally, but because of the rarity of it, it required an extreme specialist. And fortunately, I mean, much to my surprise, there actually is one in Indiana, down in Indianapolis at Indiana University Medical Center. So I was fortunate that I didn't have to fly to a place like MD Anderson in Houston, where there is a full team of docs that treat this type of cancer. I only had to drive 3 hours south to Indianapolis, and actually had a wonderful doctor that did understand the rarity of this and the unique ways in which the surgery had to be conducted.
So you're in your 40s at the time, were you?
I was 51 at the time that this all happened in 16.
You get this news that you've got not only cancer, as you said, but an incurable form of thyroid cancer. So you, I assume, tell your wife first, your kids. What's that conversation like?
Well, Jane was with me when the diagnosis came. And I, being a lawyer, I'm a fact guy, right? I got to have facts. And when, after the biopsy was done, and I got a call from my doctor's office saying that my doctor wanted to accelerate next week's appointment to this week as soon as possible. I knew right away that I was probably going to get some bad news. So I did a little bit of research, found out about the 4 different types of thyroid cancer, realized there were 2 that were incurable, but they're really rare. So I didn't spend much time looking into those. But I went to the appointment with my wife, expecting the diagnosis, but expecting one of the more common forms of thyroid cancer, not the one I was diagnosed with. And my wife and I sat there, and so she was with me when we got the news. And right away, we both knew that was, anytime you're told you have cancer, it's a bad day. It's just a bad day. But when we found out the type I had and the rarity of it and the fact that it was incurable, that really escalated, the emotions of it all. And the only question we could ask the doctor at that point was, is this going to kill me? And my wife's response, my wife is, Jane and I have been married 32 years, and she is a rock, and she was that for me during those times. 2 days later, we drove over to Illinois, where our boys were in college at the time. We had a freshman and a junior in college at the time. And we drove over there under the auspice that we were going to take them out to dinner, but we had to tell them about this. My wife told them. I couldn't get the words out. My wife told them. And of course, they were devastated at the time. We had to tell them the honesty of it, that it's a tough one. This one could be some problems. And they reacted as you'd expect your children to react.
So you get the news that it's the harder form of this cancer. It's an incurable form of cancer. For those listening, what does incurable mean, right? I mean, because does that mean you're still dying of your cancer? Does that mean it's not treatable? What does incurable mean?
Well, incurable simply means that there's currently, not right now anyway, no doc can look at me and say, it's all over. It's done. You don't ever have to worry about this.
You're not going into remission then?
Yeah, they don't even use the word remission with medullary thyroid cancer. They use the word stable or unstable. And fortunately, stable is the good word, and that's the word I have right now, which is why I'm still sitting here talking to you today, Nate.
So then you go to your doctor, you get this news, you tell your kids. I'm sure other people listening right now have gotten news, hard, news that they're sick, maybe not cancer, but things like this. So do you immediately go into fight mode? Like I'm gonna beat this, or is there a moment of sadness and lament, or is it just a whirlwind of emotions going on?
The whirlwind. I'll take option C there, Nate. Yeah. Whirlwind. It goes back and forth. You go through periods, and anybody listening who's suffered any type of dark news, listen, cancer patients don't have a monopoly on suffering. There's suffering all around us, and it comes in many varieties and many forms, and it always, always, always hurts. But through that, most people listening that have suffered those dark days know that whirlwind. There are days you wake up and you feel like, we're gonna take this on, we're gonna be fine, and a half hour later you're just looking, where did that go? Where can I get some of that feeling back? Because it's all gone and everything is dark. I see no light, and this is probably the end of me. And you wallow back and forth between those, and it's I talk about fear sometimes, but terror is a better word. And I'm not ashamed to admit that I felt that. I was 51 years old, did not want to whittle my wife at middle age, didn't want my kids' stories to be someday that their dad died while they were in college. Those were the things that drove a lot of those fears, because I did believe at that point my end was near.
We've got Bill Nelson on the show, local author and speaker and lawyer, and we're talking about his new book coming out, Firm Grip, and it just released not too long ago. And we're going to talk about his battle with cancer, these kind of things. If you have a question or you want to share a story about your battle with healthcare and what's going on in your life, you're welcome to call 219-362-0522 or shoot me a text. Bill, I did get a text here. What year did Bill graduate? I think people are trying to decide whether or not they know you.
Yeah, I graduated from LaPorte High School in 1983.
Do you know that I was born in 1981?
Next question, Nate.
We got Bill Nelson on the show today again. We're looking forward to this conversation. We're going to take our first commercial break. If you have a question, 219-362-0522. If not, we're going to get to talking about your book and more about dealing with health issues. So thanks so much for listening to Sound Off, and keep listening to 96.7 The Eagle.
Tire sale on now at both Cannon's locations. Brands like Michelin, Hankook, Hercules, and Cooper. Rebates of up to $160. Free alignment inspection, and schedule your fall tune-up, oil change, tire rotation, brake inspection, and winter-ready inspection, all for $56.02. Don't wait weeks for auto repairs. Same-day appointments available. See the experts at Cannon Automotive, 2 great locations, 710 Tyler and 909 Boyd Boulevard. Go further with Cannon's Automotive.
Replenish your toolbox with fresh, new tool accessories from Menards. Menards has over 130 CMT power tool accessories, ranging from circular saw blades to router bits and Forstner bits. No matter what woodworking project you've got, CMT power tool accessories will get the job done. Stop into Menards today and save big on CMT power tool accessories. Sale price good through December 24th. Plus, a Menards gift card is always a great gift idea.
Season's greetings to you all from Menards.
Join 96.7 The Eagle every Sunday morning at 8:30 a.m. for Calvary Baptist Church's Faith and Worship Sermons. You'll be enlightened with Pastor Tim Schreier's Words of God and music. Be sure to join us every Sunday morning at 8:30 a.m. for Calvary Baptist Church's Faith and Worship Sermons. If you like what you heard, be sure to join them at Calvary Baptist Church's location on Sunday morning at 10:30 a.m. and Wednesday evening at 6 o'clock for worship. Calvary Baptist Church is located on I Street here in LaPorte.
It's no wonder LiftMaster is the #1 professionally installed garage door opener. LiftMaster's MyQ technology alerts you if you forgot to close your garage door and lets you close it from anywhere, anytime with built-in Wi-Fi. It also has battery backup, so you can get in your garage even when the power's out.
Don't panic. MC Doors same-day service is here for you. Go to mcdoors.com. That's right, mcdoors.com.
If you're not already banking at Grand Heritage Federal Credit Union, you may be wondering what the differences are between us and others, like banks. Come in today and let us show you how you can put more money in your pocket by banking with Grand Heritage, a credit union, like free checking, Christmas clubs, auto loans as low as 2.74% with terms up to 84 months, Visa credit card with low fixed rate of 9.95% with no annual fees, children's accounts with no fees and no minimum balances, just to name a few of our services. For your convenience, we also have 3,000 plus shared branches, not only in Indiana, but across the United States. And when you call, you get a real person on the line, not some automation. Stop in today. Start benefiting as others have with Grand Heritage, here locally since 1964 at 201 Cooler Drive, LaPorte. Your money is federally insured by NCUA at Grand Heritage Federal Credit Union.
Hey, here's a question for you. What's tasty, smoked, and fresh? Give up? How about a half ham from Simms Meat Processing? Yep, and you have a chance to win one here on 96.7 The Eagle. Our annual Ham It Up contest is back, and we want to make you a winner. Just listen between the hours of 6 and 9 a.m. during the Morning Mayhem Show, as well as 2 to 7 p.m. on the afternoon show with Woogie, starting all next week as we play Ham It Up. Just guess what gate the pig is in, and if you release it, you're the winner. Ham It Up, brought to you by LaPorte Community Federal Credit Union, all next week here on your station for the holidays, 96.7 The Eagle.
We're waiting to hear from you. Dial or text 362-0522 and let us know what you think. That's 362-0522. Back to Sound Off on 96.7 The Eagle.
Welcome back, friends. Today, my guest grew up in LaPorte, Indiana. He's an attorney, writer, and speaker. A few years ago, he was diagnosed with a rare incurable cancer. Recently, he published a book called Firm Grip about learning how to thrive when life doesn't go as planned. We have Bill Nelson in the studio with us today. I'm fortunate enough to talk to you, Bill. We had a question there. How are you feeling today? So let's go through what treatment looked like for you.
Yeah, treatment shortly after the diagnosis in January of 16, found myself in Indianapolis having surgery in February of 16. It was an 8-hour surgery. Extremely delicate. The way I talk about the surgery is they pretty much removed everything from my neck that I didn't need to stay alive or keep my head attached to my body. And in that, they were able to remove the cancer. The unfortunate thing, and this is not an uncommon thing with medullary thyroid cancer, is when they pulled all the lymph nodes out of my neck, they found some that were dirty. And I say dirty meaning that they were diseased with the cancer. And anybody who knows anything about the body system, and particularly when cancer is involved, lymph node involvement is the thing you always hope to avoid.
It's like the cancer superhighway, right?
It is. It's the way it is. It's like the structures through which the cancer can roam the body and find new places to build houses, as I like to call it.
Yeah.
And That's was the concern. That's why this type of cancer is so incurable, is that by the time it's diagnosed, in the significant majority of the patients who are diagnosed with it, by the time it's diagnosed, it's already in lymph nodes. Now, how am I feeling today? I'm feeling fantastic. And quite frankly, I other than some symptoms of some hearing issues that turned out to be unrelated to the cancer, and some dizzy spells that also turned out to be unrelated, I have never felt ill or sick. I am fortunate in that standpoint, and I am cognizant of that. I know many, many people, as do the listeners, that have been diagnosed with different types of cancer, where sometimes the treatment is worse than the disease itself.
It's interesting. As you know, but maybe some of our listeners might not know, I had a illness that they took out my lung for a while. They thought it was cancer. It ended up not being. But anyway, one of the things that the doctor said about chemotherapy, he said, one day we're going to look back at this, and it's going to be like looking back at, we look at like medieval torture systems, right? But right now, it's the only torture system we have to save a body, right?
It is. And I didn't go through radiation or chemo, and here's the reason why. They don't work for my cancer. That's one of the reasons why this form of cancer that I was diagnosed with is incurable, because radiation and chemo are not options. It has been, and at the time I was diagnosed, it is a surgical-only disease. Since then, we're fortunate that modern medicine has produced a couple different drugs that were FDA approved last year. It doesn't cure the cancer. It creates progression-free survival, meaning that for a season, for a time, this drug might help some of the patients where the cancer doesn't continue to grow. It doesn't make it go away. It just kicks the can down the road, buys them years, so that in hopes that there's something next. But in my situation, with lymph node involvement, chemo would have been, an obvious choice in that if there's, where these cancer cells, wherever they might be roaming due to the lymph node involvement, that chemo could then go in and maybe knock those cells out. But since this type of cancer doesn't respond to chemo or radiation, number one, I'm spared of having to go through the awful effects from those procedures, but I'm denied the benefit they possibly could have offered. So, it's a 6 of one, half a dozen of another. What would you most want? Obviously, as hard as it is for folks, and my gosh, my heart breaks for the folks, the listeners who they themselves or their loved ones or their friends have gone through these horrible, horrible treatment procedures. But at the same time, back then, if you'd have asked me, would you take the option? Absolutely, I'd take the option, because if there's stuff running around in me, let's try to nuke it, right? And
so let's say one of our listeners got some devastating news, and maybe it's not just medical news, maybe marriage, something like that's happening that they're living a life right now when life didn't go as they planned. What's your first bit of advice for them?
Well, first of all, it's real. We don't have to pretend like it's not. We don't have to pretend like we're strong when we don't feel strong. Somebody said to me one time in the early days, in the middle of it, when there was so much uncertainty and we didn't know if I was living or dying or how soon that death would come, if that's the route I was going. They said, "Oh, you're so brave." And I says, I'm not. I'm not at all brave. The sun just keeps rising every day, so what choice do I have? I got to get up and face this. But I didn't feel brave. And that's some of my first advice to folks that receive any type of news. When that phone rings or someone walks out the door and never comes back, or whatever the darkness is that comes in, you don't have to pretend that it's not real. We don't have to pretend to be brave when we don't feel that. We are entitled to, and we should, sit in that pain and spend time there. Feel those feels. It's real. You need to go through that before you can ever reach the day where you say, okay, I'm still here. What's next?
We've got Bill Nelson with us on the show today, and we're talking about cancer, his incurable form of cancer. We're talking about a book he wrote called Firm Grip. We're going to get into that in a little bit. If you have a question or a comment for Bill, 219-362-0522, you're welcome to call me or text me or send me an email at soundoff@967theeagle.com. Let's get to our call. Hey, thanks so much for calling. Thanks for listening to the show. We've got Bill Nelson in the studio. What's your comment or question?
Hello. First of all, I want to just tell them we're praying for him and his family, but I want to let you know that this is an inspirational, one of the best shows I've heard, and it's so valuable for those of us in the community that have been through something like this. And Bill, I think, is doing well because what he first said about being on the baseball team shows his humility, because Bill was a very, very good high school baseball player. So I saw him play several times. And, by him saying, well, I was a citizen for Schreiber. If you were on Schreiber's team, you were a real good baseball player, would have started on almost every other baseball team in the area, maybe the state of Indiana. Mm-hmm. And I just want to express that every word I've heard out of his mouth today has been inspirational. He's humble about his situation, and I hope that carries him in the future. We're just praying for him, and I'm just happy to hear this story.
Hey, thanks so much for calling, buddy. And I'd almost have to agree with him here that if you make the team, you must not be a terrible player, because I can tell you this: I went to New Prairie, and our baseball team stunk then, and I still didn't make the team. So you made the team, right?
Well, yeah, I did. Sir, thank you for those kind comments. You must have been at one or two of the games where I happened to scrap out a couple hits. But thank you. That's kind of you. It was a thrill to play for Schreiber, regardless of whether you were the best player on the team or a citizen on the team.
So we've got Bill Nelson with us on the show today, and we're talking about just cancer, these kind of things, and what it's like. And we're going to get into briefly your book called Firm Grip, and you wrote a book about not only your experience with cancer, because it's so much more than that, and I've read it. It's so much deeper than that. But did the cancer, was it the catalyst for wanting to write the book?
Well, I've always loved to write, but I never had aspirations to write a book. Nate, when in 2016, after the surgery was done, we had to wait 90 days to get the results of labs and tests to find out how far back the surgery set my clock. And those 90 days after the surgery was some of the hardest days of my life. Looking back on them now with the advantage of time and distance from those hard days, I see what happened in my life through that. I see what I was learning through that process when I'm sitting in that place of lament, when I'm sitting in that place of grief, when I'm sitting there in that pain. Man, so much was happening that I was going to learn from that became evident later. So when 90 days later comes and the results of the surgery ended up being just as rare as the type of cancer that I had, and the results were good, I all of a sudden looked in the mirror one day and say, you're not dying right now. You aren't going to die by the end of this year. There is time left. I don't know how much, but you have time. Your clock has been set back. And at that point, I realized, all right, so how am I going to live? For whatever time is left, how am I going to live forward, and what is my future going to look like?
And I know a big part of your book is how are you going to choose every day of your life to look at the world around you?
Oh,
right?
boy, yeah. And that's really, as you said earlier, the book touches, the book is not a cancer story. I mean, cancer stories are a dime a dozen. Nobody needs another cancer story. Seriously, I say that with all sincerity, because cancer is not a rare thing in our world. But what is also just as common as cancer is every single one of us, every listener on wherever you're at right now, at some point, if it hasn't already, the darkness will find you. And if it hasn't, you just simply haven't lived long enough. It's coming. And if it's been there already, sadly, I'm sorry to say this, it'll come again. So the issue then is, if we're going to struggle through these hard times, how can we live a life that is not defined by those? A life where we can wake up in the morning and not be consumed by the darkness, but say, despite the darkness, despite the struggles, despite those hard times and the pain and the grief that might feel endless. I mean, really, that sounds dark, right, what I'm saying? But here's what I believe, and I am persuaded of this. We can wake up every day and we can make a choice on how we're going to live that day, no matter what is happening in our life. Some folks, that's going to be a lot easier because their life is really, really good right now. Other folks are going to struggle greatly to make that decision on whether they're going to choose to live that day with a positive life narrative or a negative one. And I get that. I don't pretend this is easy. When you're struggling in the dark, it's harder to wake up. But here's the first step that I believe we have to ask ourselves. Are we going to live awake and aware today and choose how we're going to respond to the day, or are we going to let the circumstances of the day choose for us? And as you said earlier, the book does cover a lot of issues besides cancer, but they're all driven by one thing that I learned in this process, that if I don't live intentionally awake and aware to how I address my days, how I live into those days, how I engage every conversation I'm going to have, every person I encounter, in every situation and room I walk into, if I don't intentionally engage that and to choose the awareness that I'm going to take into that, and if I'm going to live awake to those things that are happening around me and in me, I will fall into, every single time, a default pattern of responding to what happens around me.
All right, we've got Bill Nelson on the show today. We're going to take another break, our final break of the day. We got a caller. We're going to get to you right after break. Stay on the line, but keep listening to 96.7 The Eagle.
Ben Conowitz here, LaPorte Seamless Gutter, 219-362-9972. Fall is here, and that means leaves and debris for your gutter system. We've got 3 separate types of gutter guard for your home. Leaves and debris come in all shapes and sizes. We don't need a one-size-fits-all for your gutter. Give us a call today for a free estimate at 219-362-9972, or you can visit us on the web, www.lpseamless.com.
The 27th Annual Holiday at the Pops will take place at 7 p.m. Saturday, December 11th at the Civic Auditorium, presenting classical and popular works such as Sleigh Ride, Oh Holy Night, Do You Hear What I Hear, and many more of your favorites. A number of balcony tickets are available and can be purchased by going to www.lcso.net and clicking on the Holiday at the Pops tab. Tickets are also available at Roxy Music and the Civic Auditorium. For more information on the 27th Annual Holiday at the Pops, visit lcso.net.
The Melt Kitchen at the Vault is now open and serving lunch Wednesday through Saturday from 11 a.m. to 3 p.m. Located at 810 Lincoln Way across from the courthouse. Chef Eric and his staff are serving up some prepared-to-order, quick-service comfort food that will keep you coming back for more. Stop in today, 810 Lincoln Way in downtown LaPorte. Need to feed a crowd? The Melt Kitchen also offers catering and bulk ordering. Call 243-3331. That's 243-3331, or follow them on Facebook for more details.
Looking for a dependable tire shop that won't take you for a ride? Flanagan's Tire in Michigan City has been voted #1 tire dealer 18 years in a row. Their family has been serving Michigan City and surrounding areas for over 70 years. Located 130 West 6th Street in Michigan City, they do alignments, brakes, oil changes, and of course tires. Come on down and see Kyle and the rest of the family at Flanagan Tire. Your hometown tire dealer is Flanagan Tire in Michigan City, where they mark them up just a wee little bit.
Michiana weather.
A wind advisory begins at 6 a.m. tomorrow morning and continues until 4 p.m. tomorrow afternoon. Chance for scattered showers this afternoon. High of 49. From the Weather Center at HometownNewsNow.com. Right now, 36.
Thank you for tuning in to Sound Off. You can now text or email your questions directly to the studio. Call or text 362-0522 or email your questions to soundoff@967theeagle.com. This is Sound Off.
Welcome back, friends, to our final segment of Sound Off. Today, my guest is Bill Nelson, local author, writer, speaker, attorney, just a jack of all trades. And we've got him on the show today talking about his book, Firm Grip, but some other things. And we've got, if you've got a story or anything you want to share, 219-362-0522. You're welcome to call or text me. Let's get to the caller. Hey, thanks for calling. Thanks so much for being patient on the line. What's your comment or question for Bill Nelson?
Well, you know what, I was going to take a whole bunch of time and speak about this. I am dealing with cancer, but what I do want to say is that Bill, you what a great thing that you're providing. You are spot on with some of the things that you're talking about. Yes, I've had one surgery, getting ready for another, and I've done the chemo and the treatment, and the statement that you said, and it is so true. It seems some days like it's either the treatment's going to kill you or the cancer itself. I just want to say again, thank you to Nate. The man is talking from experience, and he knows what he's talking about as I'm listening. So again, I won't bore you with many cancer stories. My question before we hang up: where do I get the book?
Yeah, it's a good question. Hey, thanks so much for calling, Jeff, and I'll be praying for you, buddy. I hope things get better for you. Where can people get this book and Firm Grip? And I know I got mine on Amazon for my Kindle, which you wouldn't sign. But how do people get the book?
Well, before I answer that, Jeff, thanks for your call. I am sorry with what you're going through. Man, it's hard. I know where you're at. I know those thoughts going through your head. And here's what I can tell you. Man, stay positive as best you can. Wake up each day. Choose your response. Stay awake and aware to what's happening in you and around you. And I'm going to pray and trust that you got a great doc team that's going to help you through this. But thanks for your call. And you are in my thoughts and prayers, buddy. As far as where the book can be purchased, Amazon is 88% of all books sold in the United States of America are purchased on Amazon.com. It is the number one source for a lot of reasons. One, super fast delivery. If you're a Prime member, I think right now the book will be delivered to your house by Sunday if you order it today. But pretty much anywhere online where books are sold, Barnes & Noble, Target.com, Books A Million, wherever your favorite book purchasing places. As far as locally, I am meeting this afternoon with a local coffee shop and fair trades good dealer, and they may be carrying the book as soon as tomorrow. So, and then who knows? I mean, it may find itself into some other locations here in LaPorte. I've got a website, BillNelsonAuthor.com. I've got some. You can connect with me on social media through that. I'll post places where the book may end up, where you can physically purchase it. Other than that, seriously, Amazon.com is your best source. Deliver it right to your door.
All right, let's get to another caller here. Hey, thanks so much for calling. Thanks for listening to the show. We've got Bill Nelson on the show. What's your question or comment for Bill?
Yes, Bill, thank you for coming on. I don't think I've ever heard a more profound statement as saying the darkness will come, because that's the truth. I lost my wife to cancer 7 years ago. She had it, never had any idea, and they didn't discover it till she was at stage 4. And talk about being in the darkness. You're absolutely correct. I'm glad that you're doing well at this time, and certainly my hopes and prayers are with you on that. But on a lighter note, I wonder if your hearing issue couldn't be in part from judges shouting from the bench. Could that be part of you being an attorney? Could that be part of the issue?
Yeah, I absolutely.
Thanks so much for calling, buddy.
I love that question. I try my best in a courtroom to stay on the good side of the judges and not be the recipient of any bad looks or raised voices. So I don't think it's that, but boy, it's a very creative approach to what it could be. And I'm sorry about your wife.
I sometimes wonder if it's almost harder for those walking with the illness, walking with the people who are ill. Jane, these kind of things that love the person so much going through it and feel so helpless. I know it was so hard for my wife to see me sick, and I'm sure Jane as well, because the prospect of losing someone you love is just, it's numbing, you know.
It is, and for this last caller in particular, you know, his wife was diagnosed obviously too late, and you know, her journey's done, and any pain she had is gone, and yet we've got a caller here for 7 years. You can hear it in his voice. Yep. He misses his wife, and that breaks my heart. And to that caller, here's what I want you to know: that's your darkness. What your wife suffered was hers. Yours is now the loss of her. My heart breaks for you, but I do want you to know this. Man, there is still hope. I'm going to trust that there's a community of people in your life, friends, family, that surround you, that include you in their lives, that care for you and love you. And I'm going to trust today that is the light in your life that gets you through those dark days when you wake up in the morning and realize your wife is still gone.
All right, let's get to our final caller. Hey, oh, nope, they're gone. Sorry. We do have a text here coming through. Bill, you say you weren't brave, but I disagree. Just because you woke up ready to face every day makes you very brave. So last couple of minutes, just maybe 2 minutes left on the show. What do you want our listeners to know?
Well, you know, what I want the listeners to know is this. You know, we have self-inflicted wounds, right? We all make bad choices that bring some bad things into our lives. That's the process of growing up and maturing. But here's the other thing. There's stuff that happens we have no control of. Nothing I did brought this cancer into my life. We can't control that, but we do have. And this is nothing new. This is no startling statement, Nate. We have 100% control how we respond to it. That's not always an easy thing to do when the darkness is ravaging and wrecking and feeling like it's destroying your life with nothing left to build a life from. But I want you to know this. When you realize that you can respond and choose your response, you can live intentionally. Intentional living is the key to pretty much everything we face in life. How are we going to respond to it? We have that choice. If you can live awake and aware and shift the way you think and make some new choices about how you respond, we actually have far more control over our lives and the life narrative we put out into the world than we realize, simply by waking up every day and saying, today, I'm going to choose to take some positive energy out with me, and I'm going to spread it all around. I'm going to throw it like confetti.
All right, that book is Firm Grip by Bill Nelson. Go get it today. Again, you'll probably start seeing some more in some local coffee shops or different places, but you can certainly get it on Amazon and Barnes & Noble and those kind of things. It's been an honor to have Bill with us on the show today. Thank you so much to our callers. Thanks for those who are texting. And for you, that it's going through your own darkness right now, and maybe it's self-inflicted, maybe it's not, maybe it's healthcare, maybe it's just the loss of a loved one, and again, it could be years and years. Wounds sometimes take a long time to heal. May your hearts be open to experience gratitude and the joys and blessings we receive each day, and may you know that you're loved. Thanks so much for listening. We'll be back on, Monday for another show. And, keep listening to 96.7 The Eagle.
Thank you for joining us and voicing your opinion on this edition of Sound Off. The views on Sound Off are those of the host or callers and do not represent the opinion of 96.7 The Eagle, Spoon River Media, LLC,